Good morning. Welcome to the Kilachari Torah Daily Review of Maimonides 613 Mitzvahs, Taryag Mitzvot, for Thursday, the 12th of August. Each day, except for Shabbat and Erev Rosh Hashanah, we'll be sounding the shofar every day to remind us that it's time to do tshuva, return, repent, fix what needs to be fixed in preparation for the high holidays. We've been talking for the last couple of days about civic legislation in Maimonides' list of the positive commandments. We're up to positive commandment 194, which says that a robber has to restore the stolen article. So when we get to the prohibitions later, we're talking about the prohibition of stealing. Now we're talking about the positive commandments, what is obligatory upon a Jew. And of course, as we know, unfortunately, throughout history, there are those who don't follow laws, the halachas, as closely as they might. And take things that don't belong to them. So there is a positive mitzvah for someone who has robbed to return the stolen article if it's still available, with the addition of a chomesh, a fifth of its value, or to pay the equivalent in money if it's undergone some kind of permanent alteration. It's explained in Tractate Makot that the negative commandment concerning robbery is a negative mitzvah that's juxtaposed with a positive one, as we're speaking about here. And this is discussed in the last chapters of Bava Kama. The next mitzvah, one which of course applies to us all the time. All the mitzvahs apply all the time, but here's one that's practicable in our day-to-day lives. The mitzvah of tzedakah. This mitzvah commands us to give charity, to support the needy, and to ease the lot of those who are impoverished. This mitzvah is expressed in different ways at different points in the Torah. For example, you shall surely open your hand unto the poor and your needy brother. And again, in a different verse, if your brother become poor, you should uphold him. The meaning of all these expressions is the same, as that we help out the poor and support them according to their needs. Discussed in the Talmud, most of them in Ketubot, in Ksubas, and Baba Basra. According to the tradition, even a poor man who lives on charity is himself under obligation to observe this commandment. That is to say, he also has to give charity. He also has to give tzedakah, however small the amount, to someone who's poorer, or as poor as himself. We will, talk about maybe two more mitzvahs today. Positive mitzvah 196, bestowing gifts upon a Hebrew bondsman upon his freedom. We don't practice it nowadays, but what's oftentimes looked upon as slavery in the Torah is really a form of indentured servitude, where a person who accrues more debt than he can pay off sells himself into servitude for a certain amount of time. That's called indentured servitude. And when that Jewish slave goes free, when he gains his freedom, he should not go out empty-handed. Rather, we have a positive mitzvah to furnish him liberally with our flocks, money. The sages established a minimum of 30 shekels as the value of gifts that a master must give to the bondman when he gains his freedom. If the master had prospered while that bondman worked for him, he was under obligation to supply him with gifts of higher value. The same law applied to a Hebrew bondmaid gaining her freedom. Although as the commentator here points out, the mitzvah of the Hebrew bondman, the indentured servant, is not binding today. It is incumbent upon us to bestow gifts on all servants when dismissing them from our employ. Last one we will touch on today is the mitzvah of lending money to the poor. This mitzvah commands us to lend money to a poor man so as to help and ease their position. This is a greater and weightier obligation even than tzedakah, for the poor beggar whose need compels him to ask openly for alms does not suffer such acute distress in doing so as one who has never yet had to do it, and whose need is for help that will save him from disclosing his poverty. The Mechilta, one of the Midrashim, says every time it says if in the Torah implies an option. There are three exceptions to this. One of them is if you lend money to any of my people. If you lend money is not if it happens to be, but rather, according to the tradition, it means when. And this is discussed in Ksubas and Bava Basra, as we touched on before. Okay, we'll pause there and we'll continue again tomorrow, so please join us then. Meantime, have a good day.